Faster Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're live through till 1 by texting, calling, emailing. You're in touch with the two members, the two MHKs currently in the House of Keys, two MHKs in Tynwald, representing the Manx Labour Party. Both elected in 2021, Joney Faragher and Sarah Maltby, are live on Manx Radio today. And if you want to talk to them, find out what it's all about, then call, text, email or WhatsApp. And Joney Faragher, Faster My, good afternoon.
Faster My, Andy.
And Sarah Maltby as well.
Faster My, Andy.
Okay, it's been how long now since the election, Joney?
About 18 months,
18
hasn't it?
months,
Yeah, ish.
okay. If you'd known now if you'd known then what you know now, would you still have done it?
Wow, what a question to start with. I think I might have done things differently right at the start, but you know that's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, you always hindsight is 20/20 vision, I guess. So and we're learning every day. I think Sarah would probably agree with me on that. That every day is a school day in our role, and you get better as you go along, and that's kind of the way that it should be, I guess.
Okay, in terms of party politics on the Isle of Man, with the Labour Party, Manx Labour Party being a political party, how does that fit in with the sort of independence or the independence of MHKs? How much are you a political party?
So we are very much a political party, absolutely. I think what you're alluding to, possibly, if I'm getting your question right, is that there isn't really a party system on the island. Is that what the question?
Yeah, and apart
sort
from,
of
I mean,
comes
Liberal
from?
Vannin have got representatives within, but apart from that, everybody is there as an independent. So it kind of goes.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, there have been certain Tynwald, certain houses of Keys where there's been quite a lot of left-wing and Manx Labour MHKs, as we are at the moment. Where does the Labour Party fit in, if you like, to the machinery of politics on the island?
Well, as you say, the Manx Labour Party did used to have quite a hefty share of the vote, and things are different today. I think that it's starting to swing back the other way. We've had quite a long time, really, where party politics was seen to be not what we wanted. It was seen to be something that didn't work on the Isle of Man, and then we've had obviously us, both of us elected. We had a period of time there where there was only one Labour MHK, and then we didn't have any. So I feel like things are potentially swinging back around, and you know, like you say, Liberal Vannin have Laurie in as well, and that's a really strong. I think there's a strong advocate system there for party politics and where we're going on the island. We could get a lot more done if we had party politics over here. That is a given, and I think that has been really reinforced by my time in Tynwald. You are working against people who all have individual agendas, and there's no coalescence. Sarah and I coalesce on what our priorities are, and if we had party politics, we would have much more coalescence, and we would therefore have much more getting done.
Do you feel frustrated by that?
I do sometimes, yeah, because I know that there would be people who would ideologically agree with us, but who it's not their priority for various reasons. And I think that can be quite frustrating, that there's a very slow pace of any change whatsoever in government. And a lot of that is because we have essentially what potentially is 24 people with their own agendas instead of people who coalesce around a party manifesto.
Okay, and Sarah Maltby, how inevitable was it for you to go into the Manx Labour Party and into politics?
Well, you know, I kind of knew for a long time what I was wanting to hopefully do, but you can never be sure whether you can get the support of the people. You know, there's never been any doubt in my mind that I would always want to represent Douglas South, and I'm incredibly proud and privileged to be able to do so. What
did you pick up on the doorstep when you were campaigning nearly 2 years ago? Well, actually, you started very early.
I did start early.
I think it's about 2 years or so.
I was out the traps quick
since you declared.
Absolutely,
What did you pick up on the doorsteps?
People wanted a parliament that represented them. I think they felt like the representation wasn't fairly fair or representative of them. So, you know, I did get lots of people saying to me, you know, do you know what you're doing? You're going into this world which is completely different to what you are saying you represent. But actually, you're perfect for this. This is exactly what we need in there. We need people who are younger, with young children, family oriented, and actually people who, wear their heart on their sleeve and actually say what they feel and be able to stand by the courage of their convictions. A little bit what Joney was just saying there. We have the courage to stand up and say what we are. We aren't independent. We are part of the Manx Labour Party, and we hold those principles dear to us.
OK, we're talking with Joney Faragher, Sarah Maltby on Manx Radio today, the Manx Labour Party MHKs in Tynwald and in House of Keys. Julian, hi, you're live with Sarah and Joney.
Hi, Andy, and hello, Joney and Sarah.
Hello, Julian. How are you?
Hi, nice to have you back, Andy.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions which are closely related to each other. First one's for Joney. I understand you're a member of the Suicide Prevention Strategy Team. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Despite the report out this morning saying that there were more people who disagreed with the assisted dying bill, if the bill passes in the future, can we assume that participants in the assisted dying process will not be categorised as suicides? And if that's the case, won't that skew the island's suicide numbers lower, as people who would otherwise have chosen suicide will go down the government-sanctioned route of assisted dying? So your numbers will go down if the assisted dying bill comes in, effectively.
OK, so thanks for the question, Julian. It's an interesting one, but I just need to make it really clear that there is a huge distinction between assisted dying and suicide. And that's, that's a kind of fundamental of both of those. When we're looking at suicide prevention, what we are looking at is trying to address people's mental health issues earlier, trying to get early intervention in place, trying to put systems in place around social policy that will support people through their life in order for them to experience a happy life. It's not just necessarily about stopping people from ending their life, it's about helping people experience a good life and enjoy their time on this island and on this world. When we're talking about assisted dying, we are talking about supporting people who have a terminal diagnosis to actually end their life with the dignity that they want and giving them the option to do that. It's not asking anybody, do they want to do that? It's actually giving anybody who does want to that option.
Assuming, like Canada, though, that as time moves on, if it's altered, it will include people who don't have a foreseeable death, but might be offered it because of, depression that they can't get over or whatever, something like that.
I would never assume that, and I would never support that.
Okay. This kind of ties into my second question, which is for both of you, because I think you're both very experienced in the education sphere. And this was regarding the RSE curriculum, specifically the transgender teaching. And extensive research by experts, including Kessler in 1999, Van Orden in 2010, you've got Hendricks and Tester in 2012, and more recently you've had Brandstrom and Pachankis in 2021. They all indicate that the suicide attempt rate amongst the transgender community is around 56%, or around 14 times the general population. And that's even in jurisdictions like California, Michigan, New York states and Sweden, which have gone the furthest to accommodate the transgender community. I just think, what are your thoughts on this in relation to school teaching and potentially if the assisted dying bill was to go through later?
I'm not too sure it's actually helpful to confuse the two subjects. I think they're both very separate issues, and the fact that you've highlighted those statistics and around suicides and transgender community shows how important education actually is, and how we should be ensuring that the safe delivery of such a subject within school is appropriate and actually is inclusive of everybody, because everybody needs to have the ability to be able to, in a safe place, explore and talk about these issues that actually could be creating serious mental health difficulties for them.
Yeah, I think it is important that, every aspect of it is communicated to the public. I do agree with you on that one. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
OK, thank you, Julian. Good to hear from you. You've got a real fan, Joney. Can I just say, Joney's very caring for everybody in society, and we're lucky to have her perspective. I think Joney could make the first female chief minister.
Yeah, I'll propose.
Well, let's not jump the gun now, everybody. But thank you ever so much.
But I want to press you on this because you are leader of the Manx Labour Party, and I'm just wondering, what are your ambitions? Your political ambitions?
Well, it was really my political ambitions were to become an MHK and to try and, in order to try and make the island better, which is what I believe my politics will do, and our politics as the Manx Labour Party will do. It will lift people's lives. That is my only ambition, to be honest.
Not career politicians at all. Doing this kind of thing is really uncomfortable for both of us. That anxiety around sitting around and coming to do this sort of interview with you is because really we want to be on the shop floor. We want to be out working, talking to our constituents, and being in the meetings and trying to actually get some real change done. This is just part of what comes with being a politician, but it's actually not our natural place to be.
But you must be planning for the future. I mean, there's an election coming in 3 years' time or so. Will you be looking for more candidates? A candidate in every constituency, perhaps?
Well, that's always the goal, Andy. I mean, we've always been open about that we would like to have more candidates, but we have always also said that we would look for quality over quantity.
100%.
And we're not a party who advertises for people to stand for us. For example, people have to have been members of the Labour Party for a certain amount of time before they can stand either in local or national elections for us. So, it would be ideal to have that many candidates and to have people who agree with our manifesto that much to stand for us and who are willing to do that. But really, what we are looking for is good quality candidates who can actually be champions for the Manx Labour Party and who can show people what we can do if we all get together and want the best for our island.
Sounds pretty easy, eh?
Yeah, make it sound so easy.
Okay, let's talk about housing, Joney Faragher, on the Isle of Man. It comes up time and time again. When we did the hustings, when we did the broadcast, everybody talked about housing and how it was one of the priorities for the Isle of Man. How much has happened in this Tynwald, do you think, to alleviate those problems?
Not enough, Andy, and I have mentioned in Tynwald myself several times. One of the reasons that Sarah and I didn't vote for the Department of Infrastructure departmental plan in Tynwald earlier this year, because it didn't do enough. It didn't really mention expanding the portfolio of social and sheltered housing at all, actually. And we felt that it was really important that if we're going to talk about reducing thresholds in order to access social housing, for example, that we also have a tangential programme to build more social housing. I mean, how else are we going to solve our housing problem? I don't think that enough has been done at all, and I will keep saying this in Tynwald.
Sarah?
Yeah, we have a housing and communities board, so that is certainly a hopeful and a good step in the right direction. And I do feel like Minister Thomas does feel like this is a priority of his, but I would like to see less talk and a little bit more action.
You'll know, because when you went round canvassing,
yes,
there are people steadily going out of their minds because they're paying a disproportionate amount of their income to private sector landlords. So where do you think there needs to be a commitment, if we are to have a commitment for public sector housing to be increased? Where's that got to come from? Is it individual politicians, the department, where?
It's everybody, to be honest. It's a collaborative approach. It's not about attributing blame to anybody to say, well, you've not done enough necessarily. It's actually what we're all going to try to do to tackle this issue. There's definitely low hanging fruit there, and I'd like to be able to see that is a priority of the Department of Infrastructure. I watched listened to the Mannin Line not long ago, and the minister was then talking about vacant properties and initiative around those. Let's see it. Let's see those initiatives starting to come forward now. The strategies and the talking about it has to stop. We need to now see some action.
And can you appreciate, Joney, the disconnect then between the normal person on the street, the lay person, the person who's caught up in this, when they hear politicians say, yes, we need to solve the housing problem, and all we do is build more private sector housing that then gets rented out.
Yeah, it's hugely frustrating, and I feel that too. Sarah and I are also both on the Poverty Committee, and we've been working on our first report for this administration, which will be around housing as well. So we have tried to input. I mean, it's all dependent upon agreement of other members, obviously, but we have tried to put in as much as we could of what our policies were as Manx Labour Party politicians as well. And so those recommendations will go to Tynwald from the Poverty Committee.
Okay, here's a question, and this is from Andy, and I was hoping something like this will come in. Andy says, who's rich and who's poor on the Isle of Man? where do you draw the line for who's rich and for who's poor? We have many millionaires on the Isle of Man. We have some billionaires on the Isle of Man. But there are some people, we have an underclass of people who are really struggling, Joney Faragher. What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, I've been there myself. I know exactly how it feels. The way that we would measure those sorts of how is various sort of measures that we've got of measuring how households are in poverty in various. So it could be heating poverty, it could be food poverty, and there are various ways to measure that. And you know, I think there are a lot of third sector organisations out there to help, but that's, you know, for me, and I think for Manx Labour Party as an ideological stance, third party support, whilst people should access that now, third party support is not what we are looking for long term.
People don't want handouts, do they? Want a hand up.
Well, yes, absolutely, and then that's not, you know, a lot of people wouldn't want to go to a third sector organisation. I would encourage people to do that right now if they are, you know, in financial straits. However, our long-term strategy would be to reduce that gap between rich and poor, which, by the way, was also one of the findings of the KPMG report upon which we have based our financial strategy as an island. So I would hope that levelling up in financial terms will be part of our long-term goal for this administration anyway.
Sarah?
I was going to just add, you know, we need to also be conscious of the fact that there are many people who are asset rich, cash poor. You know, they might look like they're doing well on the outside, but actually they may have mortgages, and especially with the interest rates at the moment, who are really actually quite struggling to be able to maintain that status quo. So, you know, at the moment the lines are blurred, I would say, and actually it's very difficult because each individual circumstance is very complex.
You're a member of the Treasury Department, Sarah Maltby.
I am.
What sort of traction do you have within the department? Do you get your feelings across?
Absolutely. Anybody who knows me will know that I'm not a shy wallflower. I come forward and I will challenge, I will ask questions about many different aspects. You know, I kind of went from a household budget to a national budget. Overnight, it was a huge, huge shock to the system, but one that I have absolutely loved. In fact, you know, it has been a huge challenge, but it's...
Did anything surprise you about the priorities?
What surprised me the most was probably just how far-reaching the department is. You know, you can be talking about a multi-million-pound project one minute, and then the next minute you're talking about metal detectorists who've discovered some piece of treasure in the middle of a field somewhere. So the subject is vast, and there's not a chance you would ever be able to fully understand absolutely all the complexities of it within 2 years. But, you know, I'm giving my best shot, and that's all you can ask.
All right, Sarah Maltby and Joney Faragher, Manx Labour MHKs in Keys at the moment, and Victoria's with us on Mannin Line. Hi, Victoria.
Hello everyone.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi. It's just about social housing, and I'm glad that you're interested in it and concerned about it, because my worries are that some people's idea of social housing is actually quite dehumanising and ghettoising of very vulnerable members of society, and I'm hoping that you will ensure that the decent social housing is provided for people.
For me especially, social housing and sheltered accommodation are my two biggest priorities. Sheltered housing especially, we haven't got enough places for people to be able to downsize to, and that then effectively breaks the circle. So we have this situation where people can't move on, and they can't then bring families up in a social house because there just isn't capacity. There just isn't the provision available. Is
this something that concerns you personally, Victoria?
No, but I did grow up in social housing across, and I've seen good and bad, and I was fortunate enough to live in some very good social housing because the people who designed it actually thought about the people who were going to live in it as, you know, they considered them as human beings. But you know what's happened with tower blocks, and I'm not a big fan of shoving people in a concentrated place.
I agree with you, Victoria. I think it's super important that the designers of all housing, actually, but social and sheltered housing in particular, think about the person that's going to live there. And I honestly do think that that's where we are. We have some really dedicated people in Douglas Borough Council who are really looking at how efficient we can make the homes. So that would be saving on bills, but it's also it makes it a really nice ambient environment to live in when you're looking at as close to a passive house as you can get. And the way that they're built as well, I think, is really important for the designers. So I that's definitely something that Sarah and I and the whole of the Manx Labour Party would be on board with. But I actually think Victoria would take it one step further and say that I think the designers of social housing are on board with that as well. I'm pleased to say.
Well, I hope so, because it does affect people's mental health, which affects the physical health. And I think people living in social housing still need to have access to, we've got some beautiful countryside. I don't like the idea of people being contained. And what happened across was that people were marginalised and stigmatised, and and they were actually, they couldn't really join in with society, a lot of people, because of that. And the housing was almost designed to create that kind of situation. So I'm very glad if you can see that that's not the way to go.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Victoria.
All right, thanks a lot.
Good to hear from you. You're both Douglas MHKs. What's happening to Lord Street Flats?
Good question. What is happening to Lord Street?
The ones on Coronation Terrace?
Well, the ones that are now being boarded up, Lord Street, the old Lord Street flats, the ones that the new block of flats in Peel Road by the Brown Bobby is meant to replace. I mean, what's happening with those? Are they going to be knocked down, and are they going to be a private development, or is there going to be new social housing there?
I don't actually know, but that is something for me to take away and
Mm-hmm.
find out, Andy. Very interesting question.
Okay, just got a message in that just says, when is Jed Power going to stand as an MHK? Jed Power, he's your communications man,
Whenever
isn't he?
he wants to.
No,
no, he's not
no.
at the moment.
No.
Okay, so well, maybe Jed often listens.
Was that a question from Jed?
No,
Maybe he would like to answer his own question.
I don't think it was from Jed. Maybe Jed can answer that. Here's one that also says, could you ask your guests what's their view of the Kroger gas field and the billions of pounds it could put into the economy? Joney Faragher?
Okay, so it's Manx Labour Party policy that we are opposed to new fossil fuel extraction projects. That's in light of the climate science and the United Nations warning that anybody who pursues any new fossil fuel subjects is pursuing moral and economic madness. So that is our stance.
Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. If it looks good to be good. Too good to be true, and often is. And I've asked basic questions and still haven't had a resolution to those questions. So
Okay, well, why do you think there aren't any offshore or onshore wind farms on the Isle of Man then?
There will be soon, and this goes back to, should government be doing everything, or should we actually have a combined business and government working together in a partnership? And I think that's basically where we are finally getting to. I don't think government should be running everything at all, and I think we should be ensuring that the two, in this industry anyway, the two should be coming together.
Which do you prefer for the Isle of Man, offshore or onshore wind farms?
I'm not a scientist in this area or an expert in this area, but
it's whatever will give us the closest
yeah.
to energy sufficiency, energy self-sufficiency, I think, as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, we all know what planning laws are like on the Isle of Man. People have tried since the 1990s to get wind farms started on the Isle of Man. Mm-hmm. There are people with plans ready for onshore wind farms. Mm. Do you think the political will's there to bypass people's planning objections?
I don't think you can bypass can't bypass the planning process. There's a process that has to be followed, and that should be respected. However, I do think that there is room for planning and process improvements, and I think actually that is part of this. The plan of this administration is to review how things have been done and ensure that it is actually fit for purpose.
Okay, we're live with Sarah Maltby and Joney Faragher. Lots of messages to get through. Steve just says, regarding the MLP, he says, you voted for a budget which quite clearly hit the low paid and those on benefits. Do you recognise that, Joney?
I don't know. I don't agree with that. I wouldn't have voted in favour of the budget, and I don't think that Sarah would have been particularly keen on being part of the budget process if we believed that was the case. In actual fact, it was more of a progressive budget than we've seen, and that's why I voted for it, because we're looking for progressive budgets that actually look to tax the rich a little bit more and that look to lift benefits, and that's exactly what this budget did.
I'm unsure that when the last time a Manx Labour Party candidate, I remember, actually got the opportunity to be on Treasury. So now that I have that opportunity, I am doing absolutely everything that I can to ensure that social policy is right and smack in the middle of the of anything that we do.
Well, I'm trying to remember, but I think the last time there was a well, it wasn't even the ministerial system then, but it was the financial board chairman was 1962. It was Bert Stephen, R.C. Stephen in 1962
So
was the last.
Got quite a lot of ground to make up, so it's not going to happen within the 5 years that we're going to have absolutely everything that we want, but one step forward is better than standing still.
Okay.
And that's my attitude to it.
People from outside the Isle of Man have this vision that we're all eccentric millionaires, and the fact that there are poor people on the Isle of Man, and the fact that there are very rich people on the Isle of Man, and that gap gets under some people's skin. Why do you think we've permitted that to happen? Why do you think there are people who are palpably struggling to deal with basic human needs on the island?
I think because a lot of the big questions have just gone unanswered. They've just been allowed to be bypassed or tinkered with. Actually, we don't need that anymore. We need some strong and decisive action. So we do need to talk about those really challenging questions, like how are we going to continue to pay for the services that we want? How are we going to be able to provide what people expect on the Isle of Man so we can close that gap? Because at the moment, it's completely unfair. And we do need a more progressive agenda. And that is something I think has been spoke about for off and on, but while we've got the opportunity and maybe with the different approach that we bring to Tynwald, I hope that is actually something that we can actually now progress with.
Okay, so, Joney Faragher, which taxes do you think should go up?
Well, I mean, as far as we're concerned, our outlook would be that a progressive tax across the board. So if there is evidence that the tax cap doesn't actually bring us a positive benefit or any benefit at all, then we would look to remove that. That's what it says in our manifesto, that we would look to remove the tax cap, and that we would have a progressive taxation system from there down that taxes people in accordance with their ability to pay. So that would mean that people who are at the lower end of the socio-economic spectrum would be paying least, and that's where we stand. That's what we stand for, and I think that is actually reasonable and fair.
Within Treasury, how does more taxation go down, Sarah Maltby?
Actually, I don't ever get asked to get my coat on and leave. I do still have a very loud voice around that table, and all options are on the table at the moment, and actually will be out to consultation. So I would recommend that any listeners listening today take part in the consultations, because if you feel the same as what I feel, then I really need your support in there, because at the moment we have a system where the same people get heard and we don't actually get to hear about the majority of people. And I would really recommend that people do get in touch with myself, but more importantly, get your name on that consultation, get your views heard, because that's what's going to be to support a more progressive agenda within Tynwald.
Okay, as a message from Claire, this is for Joney Faragher. What is the connection between the Manx Labour Party and the UK Labour Party?
There is no connection whatsoever between the Manx Labour Party and the UK Labour Party, with the exception of the fact that we share the same political ideology like we do with every Labour movement across the globe. There is no affiliation whatsoever. We are as much affiliated with New Zealand Labour or with Australia Labour as we are with the UK Labour. We are our own party.
Okay, on Mannin Line today with the Manx Labour Party, 24 minutes before 1.
The beaches, the summers, the beaches, the seafood.
We've only got 16 minutes left.
Oh, and did we mention the beaches? Bar the odd storm, lots of us live the good life, but there's always room for improvement. Talk to us about financial planning and global investments. HSBC, opening up a world of opportunity.
HSBC Bank plc Isle of Man branch is regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority. Visit the HSBC website for terms and eligibility requirements. Investment involves risk.
Hi, James from Tracy Bell here. Do you need new dentures? Do you need new crowns? Well, with nearly 60 years of combined experience, the team at Tracy Bell offer outstanding treatments and results in traditional and modern dentistry, customised discreetly just for you. Call 613323 or visit tracybell.co.uk and arrange your consultation. Tracy Bell, helping you to be better.
Plum Master, where plumbers shop. For supplies, we've got the lot. Ramsey Douglas, come on down. Plum Master, the best around. Gas boilers, pipes and taps, bathroom fittings, stylish rads. Plum Master have all in store and deliver to your door.
For trade and DIY plumbing supplies, visit Plum Master at Haldane Fisher in Douglas and Ramsey. Plum Master, your local, reliable, competitive plumbing supplier.
This Tuesday at 6 here on Manx Radio, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for a special Young Farmers Concert edition of Countryside.
We catch up with some of the winners, the judges and the sponsors on the night.
And we'll have some clips from the concerts, which are broadcastable, of course. That's all in Countryside this Tuesday here on Manx Radio at 6 o'clock. And don't forget, you can download or subscribe to the podcast for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line, daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday.
22 minutes before 1, live with Manx Labour Party MHKs, Joney Faragher and Sarah Maltby today. Stephen, hi, you're live with the Manx Labour Party.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, members of the party.
Good afternoon,
and
Stephen.
Good afternoon, listeners.
Good afternoon.
What I'd like to ask is some of the failings of the Manx political system are that individual MHKs have a manifesto, and after the formation of a government, policies come out which were never really spoken about on the doorstep or during the hustings. Two of these which I'd like to talk to you about is, one is the increasing the population to 15,000 people, which in itself will create a lot of problems. As we all know, the social infrastructure and services are creaking. And the second is, at the moment, the Manx Indigenous workforce has protection of a relaxed work permit system. Now, this work permit system, in my view, does help people with protection. Should we keep it, or are you both in favour of completely removing it or keeping it in a relaxed way? Because if we don't have it, how do we ensure that the Indigenous people on the Isle of Man who may have not got good social mobility to get better jobs and be trained up by these companies, it could be cheaper just simply to bring people in, and as was spoken about before, we are providing social housing, but we sort of become reservation Manx. So how do you support the retention of the work permit system, or don't you? And what have you got to say about the system whereby eventually we things are discussed in Tynwald which the population has never had the chance to vote on? Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for your question. So first, to take the work permit question that you've asked, which is a really good and interesting topic, actually. So I have seen the issues that we face with regards to trying to get essential workers and key workers over here. So I would support a relaxation of the rules with regards to work permit for certain sectors, so that we can start meeting our targets and actually start meeting the population's needs better. And I think I am satisfied that that's really needed, actually. However, I do agree with you that Indigenous Manx need to be protected as well, and I think that we need to strike a balance there. So that's what I hope that answers that part of it. The second part of your question was around policies that aren't discussed on the doorstep. So again, I think that, by the way, that's a really good argument in favour of a party system, because our manifesto that backs up we had individual manifestos, but the actual Manx Labour Party manifesto is extremely comprehensive and covers most. Plus, you also know where we would ideologically stand on issues, because we have nailed our flag to the mast there by saying that we are progressive politicians.
Okay, Sarah Maltby.
Yeah, the first part when you mentioned why did we not mentioned in our manifesto about increasing the population. Well, to be honest, until you become elected and the island plan is formed, we didn't know that was going to be the plan. So that became the plan, and actually you can say the problems it might bring, but you have to also recognise that there might be actually some opportunities, and I think it's important to see both sides of something that can be quite frightening, and I can understand that, because you can look at the strain on the health service and the infrastructure that we have now, but by bringing those people to the island, we hope to then build and actually improve what we have for everybody.
But can you understand the frustration again of people who aren't way up the ladder of opportunity and achievement on the Isle of Man? Telling them there are opportunities is a bit empty.
Yeah, I think what would I'd like to counterbalance that with is saying that there has to be more opportunities for training and upskilling on the island, for people who want to change jobs or go back into the workforce. I think that's actually really important, and something that we kind of were good at it, and then it kind of went off a little bit, and I think that's a real opportunity that we could really grasp again and make the best of, because we have a lot of people on the Isle of Man who would like to. I think after COVID, I think that was one of the benefits of COVID, is that it's seen that people decided they want to actually change their career, they wanted to do something different, but then when they went to go to retrain, they found it was actually impossible to do so if you've got a young family, because of the commitment that takes. So, there is definitely an opportunity, I think, there to ensure that the people on the Isle of Man who've lived here their whole life and invested in it and will, are passionate about the island, just as myself and Joney are, have the opportunity to flourish just as well as the people who we welcome to the island.
Stephen?
Well, I think some of the points have been answered, but I don't think it's really sufficient to enable and ensure that the local population has this social mobility. I do feel that there's work to do, and I do understand, as Joney says, that we've got to be able to have the essential workers here. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we've got to be able to train our own people. And I'll give you an example. I believe the trades were recently talking about those who need to get gas safety certificates, where they used to have courses at the college, but they're no longer being done. Yeah. So why aren't they being done? Are you both going to investigate this to find out why? That's a simple example of the problems. It's all very well saying jam tomorrow, but we've got a situation here which could be resolved, I would have thought, very shortly.
I did ask a question to the DFE Minister near the beginning of the term, actually, and said, what are we doing to ensure that the two departments are talking to each other and not working in a complete silo mentality? How will we actually ensure that they're talking to each other and finding out what the need is? I was reassured that they were doing that. I think the will is definitely there to make sure that what we are doing is providing the right amount of people for the jobs that we have, and in the skill sectors that we require them in. That's a difficult balance, because you can sometimes foresee where the problems are going to be, and I think we should be better at planning ahead, and I think that would be something that I would encourage for Coman to ensure that they are given that their full attention.
Okay, all right, thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're live with the Manx Labour Party on Mannin Line.
You can get the best of everything, and the price is just as nice.
Oh, I'm so glad we went to Pacesetter. The perfect shower, some great tiles, all the accessories we needed. They had it all. Amazing ranges from traditional to modern, many exclusive to Pacesetter. Get your bathroom on song. Visit the Pacesetter showrooms at Harris Terrace and Spring Valley.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
Nearly as good as me.
Easter savers at ShopRite. Meat with £2 off per kilo. Turkey joints, tomahawk steaks and sirloin joints and steaks. There's 25% off Paddy's hake, smoked haddock and king prawns, with more in store. Di Maria Prosecco, £27 for 3 bottles. Selected Sainsbury's Taste the Difference wine with 25% off, and a great range of beers and ciders at great prices, as well as savings on spirits. You'll find it all this Easter at your neighbourhood ShopRite. Proudly locally owned.
Construction waste today.
Tells recycle for another day.
A builder skip or two.
Tells Skips will bring to you.
At Tells Skip Hire and Waste Disposal in Snugborough, you only pay for the waste you bring. For waste disposal and skips, give us a call on 677 137. That's 677 137. Visit Tells today or find Tells Limited on Facebook.
Call Tell Skips today.
677 137.
Are you a reluctant landlord, tired of tenant hassles, cursed by constant maintenance, tormented by empty properties producing no rent? Want to escape these worries or get out altogether?
At Prime Lettings, we understand your pain and have bespoke solutions to release you from these problems. Ring us on 616-707 for a free confidential chat.
Prime Lettings. We're on call and on the ball at 616-707.
Founder of the Eden Project, Sir Tim Smith, attended a conference on Friday which explored the economic opportunities for the Isle of Man through its strong cultural and business links with the north of England. The event was a joint initiative by the Isle of Man Chamber of Commerce and the Northern Powerhouse Partnership. Find out more on Agenda this evening at 6 p.m. with me, Phil Gorn, on Manx Radio. The ambition to replicate the success of the Eden Project in Cornwall with the new site in Morecambe is expected to attract thousands of visitors to northwest England. Will we benefit, or is this all just wishful thinking?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
At the Manx Labour Party today, Sarah Maltby and Joney Faragher live with us. If you want to get in touch, by all means, do. And Juan's with us now. Hi, Juan.
Hey, good afternoon, Andy. Welcome back. That's a nice suntan you're wearing there.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
The videos are always good. Hi, Joney.
Hi.
Sarah, how are you?
Hello. Good, thanks. Yourself?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Just a couple of points. I'm picking up on a few points that you've mentioned today. I don't want to go off my prep notes too much, but as a quick question you could answer at the end, Sarah, for me. We just touched on the sex education thing there, which came up in a conversation, and I just wanted to clarify that you're completely happy with children of that age getting taught. I suppose we should hold fire to see what exactly is in this actual education thing. But if it's anything to do with like Scotland and the UK one, then we really know what's in it. So that would be my question to you: is are you happy with the age demographic of promoting that? Now, going on to the main topic, Joney, you were talking about party politics, and I agree with you about party politics. I think there's never been a time more important at the moment for united force on the island to go forward. I'm not convinced that the Labour Party is the party to take us forward. There's a few things that are concerning there, and my question will be at the end of this. But I look at the concerns going on around the UK and around England, in alignment with the Arab report and in alignment with the World Economic Forum agendas. And I'm going by a speech by now King Charles about taking meat and dairy out of the food chain, to limit travel of people, to take away vehicles, and to limit their clothing by putting pressure on the fashion world and industry. So this is all spoken out of the word of the new sovereign and is aligned with the World Economic Forum agendas, which is quite disturbing in some parts if you read through it. So my question to you, going back to, we've just had Sir Tim Stott on saying that the Isle of Man could be an absolute haven for food sustainability, which I've been chirping on about this for a long time. And we seem to be dead-ending the support for farming and farmers on the island. And I notice now what you said there, Joney, about you're committed and your colours nailed to the mast for the green agenda. You also mentioned poverty, which the two together is one's kicking the other at the butt there, unfortunately.
Okay. What's your question, Juan?
The question, Andy, yeah, thank you. Yeah, getting carried away there. The question is, what is your the Labour Party's line and your own personal lines on the support of the Arab report and the World Economic Forum agendas?
Okay, Joney Faragher.
There's quite a lot to unpack there, actually, Juan. So you were talking about the World Economic Forum and the Arab report talking about diet, travel, and clothing, or the fashion industry. I guess I think it is absolutely the case that we will have to think about having a more flexible diet, and that we will have to look to travel differently. I would first of all, and all the time, say that the first thing we need to focus on is that top 1% who are the biggest travellers. I don't think that, Andy Wint going on holiday for 2 weeks a year is something that we need to be looking at right now. What we need to look at is the people who use private jets every single day to travel hundreds of miles to get to their job or to go for an interview, etc. That is what we need to focus upon. In terms of sustainable clothing, that's always been something that we needed to focus on. And we know that the fashion industry is a huge CO2 emitter, so I don't think that's controversial.
Are you straying into Green Party territory?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we do agree with the Green Party on a lot of. We work together. We work together quite closely with the Green Party on the Climate Change Coalition. However, the Labour movements globally have always had a strong climate science basis. In fact, it's across the board, really. That's the sort of fundamental tenet of a Labour Party, is that we will agree with the experts. We will listen to the experts and listen to what they have to say and what the proof is before we make our minds up about a matter.
Okay, all right. I need to move on now, Ju, and thanks for that today, because I just wanted to get David in, so I'll just edge Sarah out for this for the moment. But David, you're live with the Manx Labour Party.
Thanks, Andy, and to your guests from the Labour Party. 2 questions which are fairly simple. Is Chris Thomas conflicted because he's the chairman of the Housing Board in the Isle of Man as a landlord, and he's also the DOI minister, which has 3,000 houses under his umbrella? And the second question is, will the Labour Party support some of the members who are trying to get the gas trading back on the island, which would only cost them small amounts of money, and have some security back on the island? Because electricians are next, and then other trades follow.
Sarah Maltby.
Well, I'm going to have to take that gas one away, to be honest, and explore that, because I'm not too sure. If you heard, Joney? No, but I think if the sector's saying there's an issue, then of course that should be considered and looked into immediately, really, to ensure that we have the capacity to ensure that sector is. Yeah.
Okay.
And to look into it both anyway.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is Chris Thomas conflicted because he's the Minister for Housing in the DOI and has 3,000 houses under his thing, compared to the landlords? And he's chairman of the Housing Board, Isle of Man Housing Board.
I wasn't aware that he was a landlord, to be honest. But if he's a landlord, then he's just as right to have a stake as a stakeholder within any consultation. Whenever a decision is made, it's not a one man makes a decision about the whole of the policy. There's a huge amount of people that sit around in these teams and boards, and they all have to then come to the House of Keys, to Tynwald, to Coleman. There is quite a robust scrutiny of any legislation that comes through. We are very fortunate on the Isle of Man that we do have that level of scrutiny on the island for our legislation. So I wouldn't say that he was conflicted necessarily. If he's declared and all of his interests, then he has it just as much as a right to a voice as anybody else.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you, David. Thanks for that question. We're with Sarah Maltby and Joney Faragher. Time has leapt away from us. If you want more information on the Manx Labour Party, it is manxlabourparty.com. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Joney Faragher, perhaps there are people who didn't even know the Labour Party was active on the Isle of Man and just want to find out more. Do you have public meetings? Do you have get-togethers?
We do. We have a meeting every single month. It's advertised on our Facebook page, and we make an event for that. The next one will be Thursday, actually, in Ramsey. So we are taking it on tour at the moment around the island.
Whereabouts is it in Ramsey?
It's at the town hall. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, at the town hall in Ramsey, and it starts at 7:00. So everybody is welcome to come along to those. You don't have to be a member. You can just be curious. Obviously, you don't get to vote if there's a vote with regard to policy, but you can come without having to join for months if you want to just see how it is. We also have a website which is manxlabourparty.com. I've got a Facebook page of my own as well. So please feel free to get in touch with us, ask any questions anytime.
Sarah Maltby, how much does it cost to become a member?
It costs £15 for the year. That's your subs. But we do offer flexible rates for students, and we also do take into consideration people's circumstances if they feel like they're not able to make that commitment initially. You know, we have been established since 1918, and there's a reason for that. We're a strong, we're a fair party, and we're an inclusive party, and we would welcome anybody who fancies coming along to ask any questions to do so. Or get on the blower, email me. I'm on Facebook. I'm not shy of coming forward. You know where I am.
Okay, it's been good to talk to. Oh, by the way, seeing as time's flown away from us, will you come back before Christmas?
Before Christmas, wow, yeah. All right, we'll come for Hop Tuesday.
Yeah.
Be good to see you. Thanks for that. Thanks to Sarah Maltby and Joney Faragher from the Manx Labour Party. And to everybody who got questions in that we couldn't get to, apologies for those, but they certainly get looked at. Tomorrow we've got an open line on Manx Radio. Whatever's on your mind, then do get in touch out of hours. Call the answer phone on 682-631 or email manninline@manxradio.com. Thanks to a whole host of people today who got us on the air, including producer Paul Moran. Stick around for Christy. She's next on your day. And I'll be back tomorrow at noon.
WINT
Savings account.